Tonight's show, children are the latest pawn in the immigration amnesty rules.
Live from the Room of Mirrors studio, you're listening to Foster Brothers on Point. Turn your selector switch to the fire position. The show is now live. I'm Hayes Foster. My brother Stephen Foster is here with me in studio. We're the Foster Brothers. We're your hosts for the radio show. And now a word from former CIA Director and President George Bush Sr.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
As you just heard there, former President and former CIA Director George Bush Sr. Is just letting everyone know that the New World Order is coming, and actually it's here now. That speech was from back in 1991. We are currently under the New World Order, and our topic tonight segues into the New World Order, which is how immigrant children from Central and South America are being used as the latest pawns to push amnesty in the United States of America.
That's right. And, to our loyal listeners, they've noticed we took 2 weeks off and we're coming back in. I was out of country for a little while doing some work down there. I'm back now, and the radio show continues. How have you been, Hayes?
Doing good. Feels like it's been 5 weeks since we've been on air, but I'm feeling fresh. I'm feeling positive tonight, so I think it's going to be a great show.
Yeah, a lot of things have been happening in the past 2 weeks, and it's time we get everyone caught back up. Immigration's pretty big, so let's move forward with that.
All right, let's see. I've got a few things in front of me. This one is from the WashingtonTimes.com, and this one is apparently Joe Biden was given a speech at the National Association of Manufacturers. And specifically, he called for a constant, unrelenting stream of new immigrants, aka illegal fruit pickers. And it says, and this is a quote, "not dribbling like my speech, but significant flows, to bolster the national economy," The Hill reported. This is a quote also from Joe Biden. "We need it badly from a purely economic point of view," The Hill reported. Later on Twitter, Joe Biden wrote, "The final thing we need to do together is pass immigration reform. We need it badly." And that was a quote from that Newsmax reported on that. Let's see what else. It goes on to say, Mr. Biden predicted that opening the doors to the White House's vision of immigration reform, which is heavy on the amnesty, would allow the nation's gross domestic product numbers to hike by 5.4% or $1.4 trillion over the next 2 decades, Newsmax reported. Simultaneously predicted that the deficit would drop by $850 million as Joe Biden had another pipe dream.
I find that interesting. Did he actually quote in there say that he needed another million Tyson chicken factory workers, and he needed another 10 million roofers?
Well, he said we need the constant, unrelenting stream, not dribbling like Joe Biden's speeches, but significant flows.
I misheard you. I thought he said he needs some more Tyson chicken factory workers.
He said I thought no, it doesn't say illegal fruit pickers. Anyways, this is interesting too, and this is also from the Washington Times. Meanwhile, federal authorities have predicted that the number of children illegally crossing the border without parents this year will hit at 90,000, up from an average of 6,500 over the years past. So it looks like there might be something orchestrated going on here. What do you think, Tubbs?
It sounds like it. And some of these numbers are not rock solid. These are different reports coming through. I'm seeing numbers as high as 150,000 children per year. So that's a lot of kids coming through illegally.
And just, it also makes you wonder, is this part of the Cloward and Piven strategy to overwhelm the system so you can bring in your prepackaged system or your progressive system?
That's right. And some of our listeners that aren't familiar with the Cloward and Piven strategy, basically it's an old philosophy in politics, dating back to the maybe the 1950s, where basically you overwhelm a government agency or you overwhelm a scenario to where it actually collapses upon itself, and it has to have reform instantly because of the desperate scenario that it's created, and then you come in with your reform, which you normally couldn't have passed otherwise without the collapse.
Yeah, never let a crisis go to waste is part of that strategy that Rahm Emanuel, when he was at the White House, used so very well. The Obama administration and the Amnesty cheerleaders are now orchestrating masses of children from South and Central America to create an atmosphere of urgency within the United States. Just like showing a hungry child on TV, this exploitation of children is heartless, cold propaganda to tug at the heartstrings of the average American. The beneficiaries of Amnesty, corrupt politicians, see these children and teens as potential voting blocks. Corrupt businesses see the kids as new employees that will work for subpar slave wages. These below minimum wage workers lower the pay of middle-class working Americans. So that's just one of the great benefits of allowing more, amnesty for a lot of citizens that decide they're just going to jump the border or flag down border officers so they can get into the country. And apparently, there's a lot of holding areas. They're repurposing parts of U.S. military bases to house a lot of these teens and children right now.
That's right, and that's real current. Now, one of the things that we have to consider is the legal immigration with the low wages only benefits two sectors. It's going to benefit like your big businesses, like the Tyson chicken farms, where they're hiring thousands of people at below minimum wage so they can stay competitive in the global market. But it's also benefiting the libtard Democrats who, when you bring someone in under amnesty, under your regime, you've got a loyal voter for years.
Yeah, because, who wouldn't vote for more free stuff? I mean, wouldn't they be out of their mind not to vote for more housing stipends, more, bumping up the EBT a few bucks per year? There's all kinds of benefits that can come, but you got to vote for the right politician, or so we're told.
No, it's not to say that we don't care that there's a human soul that's, worse off than us. We do. But, we've created a structured society to where, we have our vaccinations. We have to jump through all these loops. We have to pay taxes. We're heavily invested in our system, and we create these rules to protect us. And then as we have extra money and surpluses, we donate to these other foreign countries. That's the way it's set up.
And it's ever increasingly, we're at a point in this country where you have hundreds of thousands of people waiting on their visas to be stamped and approved so they can become official citizens, and they're doing it the right way. They're taking the test, they're learning, minimal English. What we're dealing with this latest influx of children and teens from Central and South American countries, is we're dealing with people that have no allegiance to the United States of America, and when if amnesty does come, which we're hoping it doesn't, because lawlessness should not be rewarded, they'll have no appreciation for what this country used to be, traditional American values, hard work. You're just creating, to an extent, you're buffering the entitlement class. And that's not the kind of new citizens we need in this country.
One of the problems, Hayes, I'm seeing here is that the big rich people in the U.S., the 1%ers, they're all for this. Guess what? It's their new slave plantation. For several decades, they didn't have their slaves, and they were having to pay real minimum wages to their employees. Well, now they've finally got their slaves back. And if you're Hispanic and you've swam the Rio and you're here in the U.S. listening to our broadcast, welcome to the U.S. Please go the right way. But you need to realize you're a modern day slave in America. And I'm not trying to be rude. It's just the way the globalists think about you.
Yeah, and that's the reason we played the quote from Bushy Boy Sr., former president and CIA director, because that is the plan of the New World Order. NAFTA and GATT are in place. They don't. If you think as a new immigrant or an illegal immigrant, you're going to achieve middle class standards of living, you may want to think again, because every day the policies that are coming out of Washington, D.C. and the Obama administration are shutting the door for middle class, because they don't want a middle class, truth be told. They want an entitlement class that is ever thankful, ever government worshiping. That's what they're after, bottom line.
That's what we're moving towards, and every year they're getting closer. And there's a lot of zombies in the U.S. that just go to their work, they punch the clock, and they barely do their 8 hours and come home and watch TV and drink a six-pack every night. And that's your average American right there, actually. They're not really thinking about politics because their parents may have not, and they just think they're in America. They don't have to worry about it. Well, we've definitely crossed those crossroads at 9/11 and even before.
We recently saw there was some backlash, some anti-amnesty or anti-immigration backlash in an election recently. Who was it? What was his name? Eric Cantor?
That's actually very recent. Today's June 12th. Eric Cantor, in the House of Representatives, I believe he was in Virginia. He's a Republican out of Virginia, and he was beat by a Tea Party member in the primaries.
But Stephen, I thought the Tea Party was dead. Well, what are you talking about?
That's funny you say that. Show prep for today, I came across several articles where it was coming out of like liberal areas like San Francisco, Chicago. They're talking about how the immigration's not over just because a Tea Party member beat one of Virginia Republican. Man, that's probably a pretty big House member right there.
Well, he was the House Majority Leader. Went down in flames because guess what he was pushing? Amnesty. So everybody out there thinking that you're going to vote these people out, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, we got a systemic problem here. It's not Democrat or Republican. They're all on the same team, and the goal is ultimate power, ultimate control, letting the general population know, hey, you're a slave. You better get down on your knees and lick my jackboot.
It doesn't have to be like that. And so we've got some hut-dwelling Central American and Mexicans that are coming up to the border, and they're crossing over freely. There's photographs all over the internet now. You should Google it. Immigration in Texas, photos, etc. You can find these photos. There's actually hordes of lines. It looks like crowds of people going into a football stadium, but it's a freaking gate that looks like the border. And guess what it is? And they're coming straight across, and they're allowing them to come over.
Yeah, and that's been a consistent problem through the Obama administration. Bushy boy number two, and they do not enforce the current immigration laws.
Man, look, Hayes, I'm actually, this is actually kind of getting under my skin. I'm basically considering Mexico they're shoving them across the border. So as far as Mexico goes, if you're a politician in Mexico, you need to quit shoving the immigrants across the border to the U.S. We don't want them. It's destroying our economy. We've got a laundry list of reasons why they're not vaccinated. There's multiple cases of tuberculosis appearing all of a sudden.
Yeah, diseases that were eradicated, since the 50s. All of a sudden, there's a resurgence. Have you ever noticed, like, all of a sudden there's all these weird viruses showing up in hospitals and no one knows where they're coming from? Maybe south of the border. Ding, 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 ding.
Well, they're not educated. They can't speak English. They're coming across the border thinking they're about to get their big handout. The Mexican government's, allowing this to happen. The Mexican government should be stopping it. Well, guess what? I think that we should take them all, however many hundreds of thousands they are, and let's take them and we'll just shove them right back across. They're 1 foot across the border, and we'll let Mexico deal with them. How about that, Mexico?
Country of origin. I mean, that's where they're from anyway. And you know what? Let's give them some paperwork on the way out. Say, hey, you know what? Here's how you can apply for your work visa. You come to the country. You go through the steps of legal immigration, which is by law. And guess what? Come on in. We don't have a problem with that. But this coming over illegally, we got a big problem with that. It's called lawlessness. Let's go to commercial. Foster Brothers on Point would like to thank MyOneSupply.com for making this show possible. MyOneSupply.com, suppliers of fine firearm and tactical gear. MyOneSupply.com carries Magpul, Eberly stock, Trigicon, EOTech, and many more top-shelf brands. MyOneSupply.com offers genuine military surplus and survival items. From the battlefield to your front door, check out MyOneSupply.com. And for a limited time, enter promo code TACZone for 10% off. That's TACZONE.
Hey, now one of the things that we're seeing here is they're using children, and like this is kind of like one of the big points in our show tonight is the way they're leveraging children, under the age of 18. One of the news stories of this week is that the majority of them that are coming across are of underage, and there's a lot of questions being risen, like how are children, 2, 3, 4-year-old making this big journey from Central America all the way up through Mexico and making it to the border? It just kind of seems improfitable.
Well, looks like some of it's funny you said that, Stephen. I've got right here in front of me a WND article, Ex-Border Agents, Immigrant Flood Orchestrated. So it looks like we have some ex-border agents that are saying that this recent flood of children and immigrant teens to the southern border is actually orchestrated. Let me just give a quote here from the group. And this is a quote: "This is not a humanitarian crisis. It is predictable, orchestrated, and contrived assault on the compassionate side of Americans by her political leaders that knowingly put minor illegal alien children at risk for purely political purposes." And that's by the National Association of Former Border Patrol Officers.
Well, now what you have to realize is when you're part of an association like that, you've done your time, you've worked in the organization long enough, you probably know the ins and outs. You retired a manager because you've seen it all and you know how it all works. Well, now this group of veteran Border Patrol members are calling the bluff on the Obama administration, basically.
Yeah, and those who support Amnesty. And don't be deceived by this. It's just like those commercials you see that show the hungry children, that says donate now. There's nothing wrong with donating now, but if you put a visual stimulus, like a starving child or, children climbing over a border fence, guess what that does? That goes straight to the heart of a lot of people, and that gets them going, oh, gosh, maybe amnesty's not such a bad idea. Amnesty has caused a lot of the trouble that the wages of a working person are at right now. Because if you have someone who will do it at a subpar, below minimum wage or slave wage, guess who the employer's going with? The slave wage.
Well, one of the things about the Tea Party and this new movement, and part of the Libertarian also, is that we talk about integrity and honesty, where you don't really see that much in the Democrat Party for sure. And I can't say the Republicans have been perfect, but the equivalent of this would be for another false flag scenario. And let's say that there was a false flag where 10 machine gunners came in to shoot up a elementary school, but there was some carry permit members there that stopped the whole thing. That would be us utilizing children, to get a political point across. The Obama administration won't stop anywhere. There's no boundaries they won't cross in order to get their political, corrupt, socialist agenda through.
That's right. These progressives are out of control. And, the groups pushing for amnesty, like La Raza, some of these other pro-amnesty groups, these children are props. They're just pawns to them. They're objects to push forward the amnesty agenda. That they don't. Do you think they really care about the future of these immigrant children and teens? They don't give a damn about them. They just want their agenda pushed through.
Well, there's evidence to prove that they don't care. The evidence is they're sending military personnel into foreign countries to fight a war most people don't even know why we're fighting, only to come back, and once you're released from the military and they have post-traumatic stress syndrome or some sort of respiratory issue or injuries, they can't even get an appointment for months. And a lot of times there's lots of reports where they put in for a request for a doctor's visit, and 6 months later they call up and they're like, oh, well, we don't have you on file, let's try it again. They're not getting the medical care they need. But on the pictures that we're seeing this week in Texas, they have all these mobile medical units. So as soon as you cross the U.S. border, you get medical treatment. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's almost seeming like they care more about illegal immigrants than they do the veterans who put their life down for this country. And that's really what people need to get in their head. That a veteran who's fought for this country and put everything on the line, their life and their family and their future, and they're getting treated like garbage. And you got a bunch of people who have no allegiance to this country at all, and they're treated like kings.
Well, we don't even know if Obama's, a real U.S. citizen. I mean, that's just part of it. Where did this guy even come from? There's random, pictures of him coming out, but
nobody knows. I'm looking at something. I've got a National Review online here. This is something, it's called The New Dumping Grounds by Michelle Malkin. There's an article she put out on the 11th of June, 2014. And apparently somebody, she had a source that said there was approximately 160 illegal immigrants arrived to an Air Force base. Let's see, what is that? The Hanscom Air Force Base in Bedford, Massachusetts. So apparently it's not only on these border states such as Texas. They're trying to disperse them and move them around the country, I guess, maybe to integrate them better. And my question is, have these people been checked out medically? Are they disease-free? Because history shows there used to be something called Ellis Island, and if you came to this country, you made a little stop by Ellis Island, and they checked you medically. If you were not sound medically, you were found to have a disease, they quarantined you.
Well, you just have to realize how bad of a scenario this is. It's the disease, it's the uneducation, it's a disruption in the American society. Look, we like all cultures here, but there's a right and there's a wrong way of doing it. It's actually breaking laws. So let me ask you this. If we can break the immigration law, then can we not just break any other law? Like, why is this law okay to break?
Apparently there's a pattern showing up with these south of the border law breaking. Fast and Furious, where they were walking guns over to the south side of the U.S. border. Now we have this, orchestrated influx of Central and South American children and teens showing up. That what we're dealing with is corruption on the highest level, and no one's doing anything about it. So guess what, America? It's on your back. It's on my back now to do something about that. I don't have all the answers. I'll be honest with you. Maybe, it could start with some letters, or it could just start with showing up to a rally and say, hey, you know what? We don't buy your visual propaganda you keep bombarding us with.
Foster Brothers on Point has always maintained a nonviolent way of approaching this scenario. It's through information and education is how we're going to win this battle. The battle is won by the pen and not by the sword here. And we always want to promote nonviolence with our show. So if you can tell 10 people, if you know this information, you just talk about it. There's always going to be someone that doesn't want to hear it, and you can adjust yourself depending on how you feel comfortable. But you have to talk about it and get it in the public eye first.
Stephen, you're right. The information is the key. And, even if you do something like, share our YouTube show with somebody who, you think might be interested in it, you're doing something. You're not just sitting around at dinner griping to your family about it. You're doing something. That's how Foster Brothers on Point came into being. That's why we're here, is because we got tired of looking at each other griping about what's going on in this country. And we said, hey, let's get on there. Let's broadcast. That's why we're here.
We were going to rallies. We had bullhorns. We were going out in public. We were doing events. We're talking to people online at Home Depot. We're talking to people. But we were thinking there could be more we could do. And this is Foster Brothers on Point. And that's why we do this. We don't believe that the Amnesty deal is going to be right for the American people. It's going to hurt us. We already know it's hurting us. NAFTA-GATT's hurt us really bad. Bill Clinton has really betrayed this nation. He probably should be arrested right now for what he's done to this nation.
Yeah, and so, a lot of people think that we get on the air and, we're just strictly bashing the Obama administration. If we were on the air during the Bush administration, guess what? They'd be getting bashed too, because their hands have blood on them also.
It's the classic two-headed dragon. That's why the Tea Party has the best chance. Libertarians tend to be, on track as well. The classic Republican Democrats, it's the same old stuff. They've been infiltrated by big business. They're taking the bribes. They're taking the money. They get in office because their uncle owns a major corporation. Look at John Kerry. It's obvious. You don't even have to be smart to see it.
And remember, don't fall into the whole racial division narrative. Racism is just a tool of social engineers to keep people, paranoid of each other. And, oh, their skin's brown. You can't trust them. Or their skin's white. That's a white devil. Don't fall into it. It's not real. It's an illusion that has been used historically to divide and keep people, from getting together and going after the true criminals, which are usually in the highest seats of power. Always remember that.
There's criminals in local government, large cities, state level, and of course the federal government. There's corruption, but the one that affects us the most isn't the federal government. When you allow millions of illegal immigrants to come over and take U.S. jobs, I'll mow your yard for $10 when you were mowing it for $30. You're taking a U.S. citizen's job away from them.
And just remember that, no matter what happens, don't resort to violence unless your life is, under attack or your friends and family are under attack. And, we appreciate everybody out there who's listening to the show. And, we took a 2-week break. We're back. We're fresh. We want to thank everybody for listening out there. God bless. We're going to wind the show down now.
Last night I heard this politician talking about his brand new mission. Liked his plans, but they came undone when it got around to God and guns. I don't know how he grew up, but it sure wasn't down at the hunting club. 'Cause if it was, he'd understand just a little bit more about the working man. God and God